Good afternoon, everyone. Gareth Presch, founder, CEO, World Health Innovation Summit. Delighted to welcome you to episode 8, the Innovators Show. I've got a real pioneer with me today. Super excited to speak to Steve Jennings. Steve, you're very welcome. Just a little bit of a short introduction for people who are listening to us and joining us online. I'm really excited to get into these questions today as well and get into the story behind the vision.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Gareth, for inviting me onto the show and for the wonderful preparation that we've been through over the last few weeks, getting ready for this. So I'm incredibly grateful for being a guest on your amazing podcast, and hopefully I'm going to be able to share some real value with your audience. Yeah,
fantastic, Steve. We've set out a series of questions that we're going to go through during this sort of interview. And Steve, let's just start with like your personal journey and your inspiration. I think that's the first point of call.
Yeah.
Let me just ask you, what inspired you to pursue a career in innovation, and particularly around the health sector? And I know you're sort of like that's your sort of focus at the moment.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and it really goes back, I think, for many entrepreneurs, and I think for many people, it goes back to your childhood, where you were raised, the stories that you were told as a young person, the experiences that you had in your formative years. So I was born and raised in Hull, up in East Yorkshire, a rough, tough fishing port city, and I grew up in the 60s and 70s. They were my kind of formative years as a teenager. Huge economic decline, the fishing industry collapse. So I experienced a city that went through tremendous change. And I look back now, and it was like growing up in the Detroit of the UK, tremendous socioeconomic challenges. But what I saw around me were people that were super resilient, including my family, neighbors, friends, very resilient people. You call them salt of the earth, where we come from. Family, community was everything. So even during huge economic turmoil, there was always that bedrock of family and community that carried people through. And I think the big influences in my formative years have been family, being introduced to the outdoors from a very early age, adventures in the wonderful north of England countryside. My dad in particular was kind of a real explorer. He wanted to do road less traveled whenever possible. And he instilled in me this belief that anything is possible. You can achieve anything in life. And he really encouraged myself and my brother to push things out, not to just accept having a job and having a life that wasn't full of adventure and so I think that journey of curiosity was important as an adolescent. Sport has played a massive role in my life. I think as a former professional racing cyclist, I think the discipline of sport and the discipline of being an endurance sport athlete has given me some unbelievable tools that help you through as an entrepreneur. The journey of an entrepreneur isn't glamorous, and the journey of an innovator isn't glamorous. You see the glamorous piece when you've got a product or a solution that starts to get adopted, but the journey to get there resembles the journey of a sport person. You have to have the discipline and the rigor to train when you're tired, to go out on a 6-hour bike ride when it's sleeting and snowing. And that is my normal. So my normal is basically, the baseline is my life as a professional athlete at quite a high level that put me into places of discomfort from a very young age, like real discomfort. So my coping strategy for moments like that in life is quite strong.
Yeah, that's what you're covering quite a lot of ground here, and there's just so many questions to go through because we can go. I love the term around the salt of the earth, because that's something that we had in Dublin, so it's very relevant to me. when you talk about those challenges, can you share a defining moment in your journey that, kind of solidified your commitment to this current project that you're working on at the moment?
I can actually, and I think you don't think about this as a young person. You don't realize some of your life journey and the role that it's playing in how you think about solutions to problems, how you view the world, how you view fellow humans. Okay, so if I think about the true defining moment, and there are many, but the true defining moment for me in the world of innovation were two things. They're both related to health, they're both related to nutrition, and they are both very interconnected. Without one, the second one wouldn't have happened. So back in the early 90s, I was introduced by an elite cyclist to a nutrition solution that was being used by the British cycling team. And this product was not commercially available to buy. It was being used in hospitals, and it was being produced by a nutrition pharmaceutical company, an adult medical nutrition company in the north of England. And the product was starting to be used by sport people. And I got some product, I used it, and I couldn't believe what this product was doing. It was just, for me, it was like, wow, I don't understand the technology that's going on here, but it works as a sport person. And basically what this product did, it enabled you to have a drink, like a glass of water. And in that drink, you could have the equivalent of 2 baked potatoes or a very large dish of pasta.
Wow.
And in hospitals, this was being used for people that had no appetite, that were recovering from serious surgery. And they were smuggling these calories into a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, a soup. It's tasteless, and it was packing calories into normal foods, soups, puddings, cups of tea, cups of coffee. And I just saw an opportunity to bring this to the market. And this was pre-internet. I called this company up in the north of England. I told them what I wanted to do. And this was a game-changing moment in terms of solving a problem for a company. And by solving a problem for another company, you created a huge opportunity for what became my company. The pharmaceutical company did not want their product to be used by sports people. They were adult medical nutrition, very serious. Yeah. They basically sent me a folder in the mail. And in that folder was what we would call today a playbook to create my own product using their technology.
Wow.
And they just basically said to me, we don't want to hear from you ever again. You just go take care of the consumer market, of the sport market. And wow. That's how my first nutrition company began. That was the moment of, wow, I was introduced to the technology through a cyclist who became a very, very close friend. And that was the beginning of my journey into the world of nutrition and the impact that nutrition can have on elite sport people, and then that abstraction to what impact can this have on the normal population. So that was the first thing. Having that connection with my nutrition company was huge, because the second, arguably bigger moment was when in mid-1992, in fact, it was March 1992, my business had only been in existence 6 months, but we were already the official nutrition supplier to the British cycling team. And we'd already been adopted as the supplier, the official energy fuel supplier to the British Olympic team for Barcelona. This was in the first 6 months of this company's existence. It's wow. Astonishing.
Yeah.
I received a call in March 1992 from a doctor called Dr. Roger Harris. This call changed the trajectory of my life. He called me up. He told me that he had some research that was yet to be published. He knew that I had connections to Olympic athletes, and he wanted to meet with me to share this technology, this research.
Yeah.
I met with him 4 days later. This was just a few days after my daughter had been born, who's now my business partner. But I met with this this doctor, and the research partner he did it with was Dr. Roger Harris and Professor Eric Hultman from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden. We met at a hotel up in the north of England. It was an amazing moment. They basically handed over to me an unpublished paper. They told me what that this research had proven, 1 to 3% performance improvement in elite athletes. And they gave me some creatine in a polythene bag. And they basically said, if you can get this into the hands of athletes, the ones that use it will win gold medals. So cut a long story short, Barcelona 92, athletes that we were working with won gold medals. This story broke in the global media. And that changed the trajectory of my life from a small company that was still in its infancy. We were on the global stage, and the business just took off. It was just 2 key moments. And those 2 key moments showed me and taught me that in life and in innovation, you need moments of luck. But I believe you create your own luck.
That's very true.
And it's important. I think this is an important message. You can't write down, how do I create my own luck? It doesn't work like that. You create your own luck by doing and being authentic and being very mission driven. That's what attracts these moments. You can't contrive them. It doesn't happen like that as an entrepreneur.
Agree. The other thing I would say, and they're all they all bring that together.
Yeah.
Is also sticking on time, and like you said, it's that dedication. Like you're saying, going out and doing that ride.
Yeah.
In the sleet and snow. It's the same in the morning when you wake up.
Yeah.
And you have a call with someone, and you're like, I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
But that call could change your life.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
It is very, very powerful. And I had a call like that with a young person yesterday from a media company, and it ended up being one of the absolute highlights of my day. Like a true highlight of my day. You just don't know who you're going to have a conversation with until you have the conversation. And I think that is really being very open-minded to new and very open. I call them collisions of serendipity. You just don't know who you're sitting next to on a plane. You don't know who your neighbor is sometimes.
Yes. I quite like this sentiment. It's like you're saying, and I love the way you phrased it yesterday. The call with that, with the mate. I had something similar last night. Very late at night, I made a call, and then all of a sudden, we've organized something in the US, and I was like, wow. I told my team this morning, and they were like, incredible. You know what I mean? So I agree with you. Just let's move on to the second point here, and about the current innovation that you're working on. So give the context here, like what is the specific problem that you're trying to solve at the moment? Now, what I'm particularly interested is, of course, this nexus between nutrition and health, because that's huge, and it's an area that we often neglect. So that's what really inspires me about what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's ever such a good question. And I think the way that I, over the years, have started to view the nexus and this collision between nutrition and health, which we all know that nutrition plays a pivotal role in health. What I started to realize as I was, building businesses in the nutrition space is that the products that you're developing, people put inside of their body. So that in and of itself it creates a huge sense of responsibility. You develop innovation in the nutrition space with food products. Those products are designed to be consumed by people. From that point, I kind of look at what I'm developing and say, whatever I develop has to have a net positive impact on how people feel and on a person's health. And once you've got that as a baseline, it's like a foundational credo, it's a foundation of what we do. The innovation becomes much, much easier because you're making decisions about what kind of product, what kind of ingredients, based on people are going to consume this, they're going to put it in their bodies. And just that is I mean, like I said, the sense of responsibility that comes with that sometimes it makes you feel quite small, and there's no margin for error. It's just like just like this. Yeah,
you have that sense of responsibility, I guess. That's important. That comes with your sort of integrity, and I guess you're sort of leaning in here to like, how does your innovation improve the current approach, which is in the system in your field? And there is a bit, I believe, having worked on the health side, there's such a huge need for nutrition. But I mean, you're gonna, we're gonna delve into further, but it's very important to make the nexus between health and nutrition stick. And I don't think a lot of people are aware of that.
No, and I think much of it comes down to education. And if we move from education to edutainment, I think a lot of the content that you see just doesn't resonate at an individual level. Contextually, people don't understand it. You have to create content that is educational, that resonates with people like you and me. You have to see yourself as a character in that story. That's me. That's me. They're talking to me. I become a participant in that nutrition and health journey, and I understand what it means to me and my family. And once again, these become bedrocks that influence the innovation that you focus on and the trajectory that innovation takes. Because the innovation without storytelling and without context, and without being able to connect that nutrition innovation with the people that really need it, you won't succeed. So it's understanding what are the components that are needed in order to take a piece of innovation, nutrition innovation, connect it with health, and then storyfy that education into edutainment and make it contextually relevant to as many people as possible. So with what we're working on today, which is, it's the evolution of creatine, which is an extremely powerful compound that's found in naturally occurring in the diet. But it has huge health benefits from muscle strength, so atrophy, sarcopenia, which is a huge issue as you age, mitochondrial health, metabolic health, bone health, women's health, cognition. I mean, you're touching on dementia-related conditions. You're touching with creatine many health needs that we have that can be delivered in the context of nutrition, and that is an extremely powerful thing to be able to do as an innovator. Yeah,
and I think there's a couple of challenges. There's a couple of opportunities. I would say, and this brings us nicely into like sort of the impact and the outcome side of like, the next step, shall we say. Yeah. Because when you look at health systems, for example, they're very risk averse. Like, it's interesting. When you spoke earlier, the pharmaceutical company sent you over the file and said, we don't want to hear from you again. We're going to focus on health. Yeah. So that's actually a good insight into how innovation sometimes is handled within the health sector. And the adoption of innovation takes years in the health sector. Yeah. But for me, this is what's exciting about working with yourself, Steve, and the sort of discussions we've had. It's being able to articulate that to a global audience.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? And
Yeah,
like so that sort of brings us in, like, what impact do you see your innovation having on communities and global health? You know, it's a bit of a game changer. Do you know what I mean? Because you're able to apply the science and technology, which the health service knows is good for you, but you're able to bring that to a global market. I mean, that's exciting.
It is exciting, and I think if I go back to some of the other points that I've been making, I think ultimately what you're wanting to do is have impact on a positive impact on the lives of as many people as possible. Okay, so as I mentioned, cognition, sarcopenia, muscle atrophy are really big challenges. And I think as an innovator in the nutrition space, if you can make that connection between health, nutrition, and even medical nutrition, and bring those three pieces together, just by virtue of doing that, you're starting to define, well, who are our partners? Who do we need to be talking to? What does this cluster start to look like from a implementation perspective? And I agree. I think this also goes back to something that has been instilled in me on my journey as an entrepreneur and an innovator. It's to keep things simple and to bring that simplicity into a world of complexity. Okay, you can't oversimplify, but I think we would all agree that if you look at the innovation process in most sectors, you have to start looking at where can we save time, where can we, I wouldn't say cut corners, but is that step really necessary? Because ultimately, if you have something that can have a profound impact on the health and well-being of a global population, you have a responsibility to bring that solution to the world in the shortest time frame possible, for many reasons, from health reasons, from healthcare cost reasons, from
an ethical perspective.
Yeah. So
I look at it like, if you look at remember the guy, the Swedish engineer who developed the seatbelt?
Yes.
And he decided, listen, I'm going to just give that out as a free patent. And that's the sort of thing when I look. So it's many people say to me about the World Health. So the idea is, when you're doing something like this, it's for the common good.
Yeah, it is. That's ever such a good point, because when I look at what we're doing today, and I think as you go through this journey as an entrepreneur, and you start to realize that ultimately it's about impact and serving people, the new business that we're developing and preparing to bring to market at scale out the gates is really about being an enabler of an ecosystem. So the ecosystem for creatine exists, and my focus and my mission is, how can we take an existing ecosystem and 10x the impact of that ecosystem, which is totally possible. In fact, it's needed.
Yeah.
And how can we do that in a way that enables all of the participants that are currently within that ecosystem from benefit from that 10x growth journey? Everybody, I call it, we all rise together.
That's what's so encouraging. So if you look at the future of business, so there's people like yourself and others, right?
Yeah.
Who see that shared value and co-creation, but then also that shared wealth.
Yeah.
And even if I take it even further, if I look at my two children, for example, and they're both 9 and 12, and they both have that ideology about everyone working as a team.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the future will like. And that's when you look at, like, so if you look at some of the big asset managers and they say we're going to invest in the future industries, these future industries will be about shared value. So that's where I think it's exciting for the future. Let's look at how do you measure the success and effectiveness of your innovation from your perspective? Like you talk about the markets, what would be success for you, in terms of impact?
Yeah, and this is a really good one, and it's actually not that easy to measure, but it's measurable. So for us, it's all about human impact metrics. How do you measure positive human impact? I mean, there are many ways to measure positive human impact. We could measure positive human impact when it comes to nutrition and health around reducing the burden on the global sick care system. Okay, so we're very much focused on preventative health span, and taking people on a lifelong journey. That means as they go through into that second, third, fourth part of their lives, you're reducing the need that they have for medical intervention. That's ultimately a big piece of what's playing out here. And we are part of that. There are many other companies that are realizing that if we can keep people healthier for a longer duration of their lives, we're going to need to have fewer sick care interventions. This is very, very, very important. It's arguably, just one point I need to make. I just want to make one point that I think is really important. It's very easy to get lost in the narrative of longevity and get lost in this future world that really doesn't connect as a narrative with many people. But a lifelong journey of ageless vitality and feeling strong and resilient and useful to family and community is a story that resonates with just about everybody that you share it with. So you can measure outcomes with human impact metrics that are very ethnographic. It's stories, it's people recognizing that I feel better now than I did 10, 20 years ago because I'm being introduced to edutainment that's showing me in practical and contextually relevant ways what's possible. What's possible.
I totally agree with you. And a couple of quick points here. Firstly, it's important to understand the great need in this space, because some people will say, oh, you're taking away from the health system, because people in the health system may think, oh, you're taking, our clients. That's not true. No. Because don't forget, we have over 3 billion people worldwide who don't have access to healthcare. Yeah. Okay. And also in the UK, for example, we have like 7 million people waiting for elective surgery. Our health systems are on their knees. So we need a new approach here. So everything you're talking about is spot on.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the next point.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Sort of challenges, learning experiences, what lessons? I mean, you shared some of the lessons, but what that you would like to share with aspiring innovators, people who are tuning into this and saying this really, what advice would you like to give them?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, and it's one that I've had for a period of time. I was the entrepreneur in residence at Lund University, moving across different faculties. So Lund University is the oldest university in the Nordics. It was an absolute privilege. It was one of the absolute highlights of my life. What that did, it enabled me to move across different faculties. But the focus of what I was doing at Lund University, which was part of their open innovation group, was interacting and working with the future generation of change agents, entrepreneurs, scientists, both computer scientists, bioscience scientists. These are the people that are going to define the future of the world that we live in. And I started to lecture, which was wonderful, and have one-on-ones and do a lot of talks at the university. And as I started to think about what do I need to communicate from my journey that's going to help set these people up for success on their journey, I started to distill this down to a number of key things that are actually quite simple. So I start with reimagine what's possible with what we have now. What do we have now, and how can we reimagine that in a new way? Okay, I call it rediscovering the obvious, and I've written an entire thesis about this that I'm actually being encouraged to turn it into something more than just a thesis on my hard drive. It may become a piece of media or a book. I don't know right now, but it's a thesis based around rediscovering the obvious. I'm an absolute believer and evangelist when it comes to lifelong curiosity. And I've had once again, I've been deep inside of Lego, an amazing company, working with some of the greatest curiosity minds and educators in the world. Lego is a curiosity enabling brand. It unlocks and unleashes curiosity. So lifelong curiosity is what propels me forward. I am so curious, and it can be an Achilles heel, because you start looking at everything and it's like, I've got to focus this curiosity on what I'm doing. Collaboration and collaborations are crucial. Keeping things simple, work with the best people, attract the best people, have a mission with such a big purpose that it attracts the best people, and the best people are galvanized around that mission. I do this, and I'm now seeing people that I've helped over the years build their own businesses and use elements of this playbook, have a can-do attitude and a mindset of anything's possible, have mission alignment with all your stakeholders. It's absolutely imperative. Be prepared to pivot and let go of what you thought you were actually going to let go of, what you thought the solution was.
Yeah.
And just embrace the journey and the uncertainty of the journey, because basically entrepreneurship, when you distill it down to what is being an entrepreneur all about, you're basically running a series of experiments all the time, and you're iterating on those experiments in the hope that you're going to find a solution that solves a really big problem, and that big problem has got baked into it impact and mission alignment.
Brilliant. And I mean, so that's the lessons. But what are the challenges? What are the biggest challenges you faced while you've been developing, innovation, and how have you overcome them? I mean, that's resilience, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and you need this as an entrepreneur. You need the skeptics. You need the people that give you pushback. You need the tough love. You need the naysayers. Otherwise, you end up living in an echo chamber. You need the people that can ask you the really tough questions. And as an entrepreneur, these questions are coming. And as you kind of become a little bit more experienced as an entrepreneur and as a person, you start to actually literally write down the tough questions that are coming, like FAQs, and you have to be prepared for them.
Yeah. The tough questions come thick and fast.
Yeah, they do. And the most important tough questions are the ones that come left of field that you couldn't see. And the moments of the big moments usually come when you think you've got a big piece of this figured out, and then a left of field question comes, or have you read this, or do you know about this company? And they are the moments as an entrepreneur that can really help to make what you're doing more robust. It can help you just to go that last mile, that last iteration. When you think you've done your iterations, that last iteration is the one that defines those that are still kind of dreaming from those that are actually going to execute and make something real. It's that you almost have to create something that attracts the tough questions, because without them, you potentially won't make it, because you haven't yet gone through that last two iterations that you can't see, that you know are coming, but you don't know who's going to deliver the question that's the trigger for that fifth or sixth iteration.
So this is going to be a left field one. So we only got 5 minutes left, but we've got a lot to cover in 5 minutes, right? So we're going to try to do this quick fire. Sustainability and future plans. Okay, how does your innovation align to the SDGs? Good health and well-being. And then I'm going to cover this. What are your plans also for scaling the innovation, and how do you see it evolving over the next 5 years?
I think, sustainability and the Sustainable Development Goals have a role to play. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, our approach, our design thinking approach, and the frameworks that we're using have really got sustainability baked in when it comes to health, because we're all about delivering positive human impact in the context of nutrition and health. When that is a default piece of your DNA, by virtue of doing that, you're not actually thinking, what's our model or approach to sustainability? It's baked in to the business. It's baked into the values of the business. It isn't an afterthought. Oh, have we thought about sustainability? It's DNA. You can't try and bolt this on or reverse engineer it in. It has to be part of the DNA of what you're doing, the innovation that you're bringing to the world. And when you do it that way, you're actually not thinking about sustainability as being, are we sustainable? It's an outcome of your playbook and the frameworks and methodologies that underpin your innovation approach. Your second question about how do we scale is one that I can answer in a very, very, very easy way, actually. It depends on the business that you're in. It depends on what kind of a company you want to build. The business that we're currently building is all about scale. It's totally, the business only works at scale. It's been designed to work at scale, and the economics of the business operate at scale, and we only want to have impact at scale. That determines who do you need to be partnering with to be able to hit the market at scale. So for us, it's large global food and beverage companies. It's companies that are already operating at scale. And if you can bring them a piece of innovation that fits into their product development roadmap, it fits into their brand portfolio, and show them a way that you can bring a very significant game-changing value add to something that they're doing, that augments something that they're doing and gives them a competitive advantage, you will get partners that will collaborate with you and help you scale your innovation. It comes with years of network building and trust and understanding how things work in the corporate world, and how you can bring innovation into the corporate world and bring it in such a way that it fits their model, it fits their playbook, it sits in their roadmap. But you're also bringing this sense of urgency. When I worked at PepsiCo, one of the things that they wanted me to do as an innovator that helped define their global health and wellness and good for you nutrition strategy, they brought me in as the entrepreneur. We call them an intrapreneur today. The guy that could go from the seed of an idea to being in market with an MVP product in 16 to 24 weeks. It's unheard of in corporate. Yeah. It's like it's 2 years. Yeah. And what I did was transfer knowledge to speed up that innovation process, to de-risk that innovation process, and to get product into the hands of consumers as early as possible. So and that is what you have to bring to these conversations with big companies. We understand your process is a 2-3 year journey. This innovation, this innovative step that we're bringing to the world needs to be brought to the market in a compressed time frame. It's how can you de-risk and compress both the financial implications of what we're doing, but the timeline to bring this to the world.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, it's great. And that leads us in. We've got 2 final questions. Collaboration and partnerships. How important is it to have partnerships in this innovation development? Is there any key collaborators you'd like to mention? The role of cross-sector collaboration, what does that play? And then I'll ask you to give some advice around aspiring innovators just to finish off, Steve.
Yeah. Okay. We can't do what we do today without cross-collaboration partnerships. We look at everything through the lens of ecosystems. Once you understand the landscape of the ecosystem that you're going to be operating in, and you've got that mapped, so there's a lot of deep work that you're doing under the hood that people don't see. You're doing a lot of mapping, a lot of ecosystem mapping, trying to get a sense of who do we need to be partnered with and who do we need to be collaborating with. So our partnerships almost self-select themselves. It's what is going to blow wind into the sails of what we're doing and bring value to the partners that are already in this ecosystem, where we can bring something that is going to be good for them. And how can we grow that ecosystem significantly so that it creates more shared value outcomes for everybody that is a participant in that ecosystem? Our ecosystem touches health, nutrition, global brands, adult medical nutrition. It touches global populations, because ultimately that's who we're serving. Yeah. That's who we are serving.
And that's meaningful.
Yeah, it's incredibly
you're hitting
meaningful work.
Areas that and there's a huge need.
But you also have to be mindful that the world of business and big brands is highly competitive. It is about market share. It is about creating shared value, but also shareholder value.
Yes.
But it's being able to do that in a way that's aligned with the modern world, which is in a state of great flux at the moment and uncertainty, and it's understanding what does this mean. You can't go into doing something like this being too idealistic and naive, because you will not be able to push your innovation over the line because it hasn't got a commercial underpinning. It has to have that commercial underpinning that makes sense. I
agree, but you also got to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
when you're talking about that geopolitical instability, which we're going through, and that, but we also have to look to the future. Where are we?
We do.
What are the projections? And I think that goes back to the meaningful discussion.
Yeah.
And it may be that your innovation isn't right today, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be right in 4 years, 5 years. You know what I mean? So everything comes at the right time. My last sort of question to wrap the session up, and this has been an amazing conversation. Advice for aspiring innovators. What advice would you give to someone starting in the field of health innovation? And then, how can young innovators stay resilient and motivated during the ups and downs of their journeys?
No, this is a fantastic way to summarize the entire conversation that we're having, actually, Gareth. So I think it's all about the mission. The mission has to be bigger than yourself. It has to be bigger than yourself. By virtue of doing that, you are creating something that it gives you that energy that you need and that resilience that you need to kind of navigate your way through the hard times, the times when you just don't feel as if you're making progress. So it's asking yourself this question every day: why are we doing this? Who do we serve? And we serve people. And then it's to have a solution that is going to have a positive impact on the lives of people. That's kind of the sweet spot. We serve people. We want to have a positive impact on the lives of people. And to do that, you need to have a commercial model that makes that attractive for all stakeholders, including creating shared value. And I think that's all that really matters. It's keeping it simple and understanding that the stakeholders and partners that you're going to work with as an entrepreneur have needs. They have their own needs. They have their own agendas. You need to understand that and accommodate their needs in your own model. Because if you can do that, you're putting down the framework and alignment that's needed to collaborate in ways that are unimaginable. Collaborations are not black and white. There's a lot of nuance in collaboration. There's a lot of nuance in what collaborations can unlock as that trust is built with these entities that you're collaborating with. It starts to unlock value and opportunity that you can't see. And that's the magic as an entrepreneur. And I think that's almost what keeps you going. You wake up in a morning and it's like, well, I've got my to-do list, but it's the things that are not on my to-do list that are going to arguably create the most value. That come from the conversations like the one we're having today.
And like, if you have that big vision, you have to understand if it's a big change, it takes a long time.
Yeah.
So it's not something that can happen overnight. Do you know what I mean? Like, these things take years.
They do. And in the space that we're in, you're expecting it's having the experience to know that you can't change people. You can't change the habits of a lifetime in people. It does include the nudge principle. You need to nudge people. There is no silver bullet. It's a journey to a place of better health, youthful vitality. It isn't in 6 weeks or 6 months. It's an ongoing, lifelong journey. There are no silver bullets. There are ways to make people feel better in the short term, but you have to invest in yourself across many dimensions of what does health and nutrition really entail. You've got to move your body and exercise. You need to think about sleep and rest to allow your immune system to recover. You need to think very, very carefully about, what can you do when it comes to your nutrition, and having the information that enables you to make informed choices.
Yes, I totally agree. And look, Steve, it's been a pleasure having you here on the Health Innovators Show for episode 8. For those who are tuning in, you can find all the information on our website, www.whis.world. Steve, can you just, final point from yourself, how can people contact yourselves, and just any last messaging that you'd like to give to people who are listening?
Yeah, I'm very, very approachable and accessible on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn. Gareth, if you can put that into the edits of this, I'm available on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram at Creatine OG, Creatine OG. I'm quite active on that account, and I respond to messages. I'm very accessible, and I'm also very, very accessible when it comes to WhatsApp and talking to people. You have to invest in the conversations and relationships. So I'm an accessible person. I don't work in an ivory tower. I am a feet on the ground person trying to solve problems that are also going to benefit my life and my family's life.
I love it. Thanks, Steve. I hope you've enjoyed this show, and we'll be back with episode 9. So stay tuned, and we'll talk very soon. Thanks, everyone.